12 cheesy good B-movies from the Cannon Group, the crazy defunct movie production house. Ever wonder what could possibly go so wrong with a production house as famous as the Cannon Group Incorporated? One that used to generate more than a dozen films every year. The film studio, founded by Dennis Friedland and Christopher C. Dewey, happened to be quite a prominent one, especially back in the 80s, with key people such as the late Menahem Golan and his cousin Yoram Globus. Remember Cannon's over-the-top promotional video? Well, the year might be 2021, but it is still hard to let go of the late Don LaFontaine's voiceover, especially when he says, "We are Cannon Films and we are dynamite." Yes, one did get to witness a car exploding right after that, so do not be taken aback when we tell you that within months of the promo video and the BBC documentary, Cannon started meeting its downfall almost as quickly as it had mounted on the very waves of success. While it's undeniable that Cannon did maintain a continuous flow of films throughout the later phase of the 80s, the box office disappointments of movies like Superman 4 and Masters of the Universe did have consequences. Add to that the fact that Spider-Man and a sequel to Masters of the Universe didn't happen despite the company having already spent $2 million on the latter's sets and costumes. And it doesn't take one long to realise what led to the downfall of Cannon. Having said that, there's simply no reason not to celebrate the very best from the legendary film studio. So gear yourselves up as we take you through 12 of the cheesiest good B-grade movies from the crazy defunct movie production house, the Cannon Group.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
ALLAN QUATERMAIN and the Lost City of Gold, 1986. This sequel to the 1985 movie King Solomon's Mines has ALLAN QUATERMAIN pairing up with Jesse Huston. Yet again, this time on the lookout for Alan's long-lost brother, Robeson, who seems to have vanished without leaving a trace while he was exploring the wilds of Africa. Alan and Jesse learn of the lost city of gold and decide to explore more. The whole beauty of this 1986 adventure comedy happens to be the sole fact that we get to see Richard Chamberlain and Sharon Stone reprising their roles as ALLAN QUATERMAIN and Jesse Huston. But due credits have to be given to Henry Silva for essaying the role of the evil high priest, Agon, who inarguably makes the movie not only work, but is also interestingly watchable. Mark our words when we say that Gary Nelson's ALLAN QUATERMAIN and the Lost City of Gold is hilarious to a whole new level. So much so that you might even have to gasp for a breath. We guarantee that you won't be able to stop laughing. Also, many have actually compared this film with Indiana Jones and call it a total rip-off. Well, here's the thing. Why not give it a shot and be the judge yourself? American Ninja, 1985. Orphan drifter Joe Armstrong finds himself on an American Army base in the Philippines after a judge gives him a choice of either enlistment or prison. During one of his first missions steering a convoy, his unit gets wiped out by a group of Black Star ninjas who kidnap Patricia Hickok, the commanding officer's daughter. Joe, however, manages to rescue Patricia and gets her to safety back to the base. The fact that everyone else in the squadron was killed leads Joe's superiors into thinking that he is guilty of weakness, association, and incompetency. Meanwhile, the Black Star Master Ninja swears to take vengeance on the soldier who interrupted his plans and sends an army of ninjas to butcher him and also bring back Patricia. While it's true that initially this first installment of the American Ninja franchise did receive a mixed reception, there was nothing stopping this martial arts action film from becoming a financial success and cult movie. Cut to 2021, Sam Furstenberg's American Ninja might seem ludicrous and even unrealistic to many, but do believe us when we tell you that the movie is ridiculous in the best possible manner. The film boasts well-staged 80s action sequences. The sword fighting scenes in water definitely deserve a mention, along with the shot that has a butterfly knife dangerously tossed back and forth against Joe. The highlights are definitely the ninjas, who happen to be entertaining, along with the late Steve James, playing the role of Corporal Curtis Jackson. The latter, despite his limited screen time, effortlessly managed to put up a show. American Ninja is highly recommended, and there's nothing that a crate of beer pints won't do to give you some epic company. The Barbarians, 1987. This 1987 sword and sorcery flick, directed by Italian filmmaker Ruggero Deodato, centres around the life of twin brothers Kuchet and Gore of the Ragniks clan. The duo happens to be on a mission to seek revenge on the evil tyrant who not only ambushed and slaughtered their tribe, but also had them separated and imprisoned in his fortress. It's hard to believe that Deodato happens to be the same director who came up with the 1980 Italian cannibal movie Cannibal Holocaust, and as compared to that, this one here is pretty tame, light-hearted, and most importantly, fun to watch. We have real-life siblings, Peter and the late David Paul, essaying the Barbarian brothers, and both seem to have an incredible time portraying them. Our heroes are quite muscular. We have a damsel in need of saving, and the villain is an exaggerated version of all bad guys combined. What more could you want in a movie like this? The Barbarians is a film that does not even try taking itself seriously. It's a pure classic, but in its own way. CYBORG, 1989. Albert Pyun's 1989 martial arts cyberpunk film is set in a post-apocalyptic setting, one where an outbreak known as the Living Death has almost crippled evolution. A tiny group of surviving scientists are doing their best, working on a cure to save whatever is left of humanity. But in order to complete their work, they need access to some data, which is stored in a computer in New York City. Pearl Prophet, who steps forward for the dangerous mission, is made into a cyborg and then sent to retrieve the info. Soon after she manages to lay her hands on the information, she is abducted by the malicious Fender Tremolo and his crew of murderous marauders. Now it's up to mercenary Gibson Rickenbacker to not only save Pearl from his evil nemesis, but also kill him, as he was the one who slayed Gibson's family. For a running time of 82 minutes, the film is pretty fast-paced, with a spectacular post-apocalyptic environment as the backdrop, and some amazing action scenes on display. It goes without saying that Jean-Claude Van Damme, as Gibson, was convincingly badass. Apart from Jean, full credits to Pyun's direction, along with Lalo Schifrin and Kevin Bassington's mind-blowing musical score. Many of you might not know this, but CYBORG happens to be the last certified theatrical release for the Canon Group post going broke in 1987. So while it might have been made on a low budget, that does not stop viewers from witnessing some cool cinematographic visuals, slick gore, and kick-ass action scenes. Gore, 1987. Loosely based on the 1966 novel Tansman of Gore, this 1987 science fantasy flick directed by Fritz Karish revolves around a socially awkward professor of physics, Tal Cabot, who is accidentally transported to the planet Gore thanks to a magical ring. Now it is up to Tal to overthrow the evil despotic priest King Sam and make his way back to Earth somehow. What's there not to love here? You have fantasy, action, a great deal of violence, a whole new setting. Rebecca Ferrati as Talina looked drop-dead gorgeous. It was also a sheer delight to witness the character development of Urbano Barberini, who was quite charming as Cabot. A small piece of advice though, if you decide to give Gore a shot, we would sincerely urge you not to compare it with the novel it's adapted from. Ninja 3: The Domination, 1984. Christy Ryder happens to be a telephone line woman and an aerobics coach who gets possessed by the sinister spirit of a dying ninja. The spirit has plans of using Ryder's body to exact revenge on the police officers responsible for his death. Initially, it starts with limited yet visual behavioural changes. However, eventually, Ryder starts killing and can apparently only be stopped by another ninja. Sam Furstenberg's 1984 martial arts action horror film is the third movie in the Ninja Trilogy anthology series produced by the Israeli cousins, along with David Womark. We have the beautiful Lucinda Dickey here, who literally had on display the most athletic-built female back, and let's not forget those biceps. Ninja 3, The Domination, features some epic action scenes. For starters, the Black Ninja takes 17 shotgun blasts before possessing Ryder. It's all anything but boring, and there are plenty of scenes here that will have you in splits. In simple words, never underestimate a ninja movie, especially one that's blended with bits of The Exorcist. The Naked Cage, 1986. A young woman falsely accused of a bank robbery finds herself having a rough time in a prison that's run by a sadistic, crooked warden. She literally struggles to endure the severe prison life, one where things like sexual assault, forceful bullying, and drug addiction run uncontrolled. Paul Nicholas's 1986 American drama has literally everything that a viewer might want in a woman-centric prison film. Right from merciless prison guards, lesbian encounters, a mass shower scene, women fiercely fighting women, and a lot of unwanted female nudity. You name it, this movie has it. The level of violence shown here is pretty high. Catfight scenes like women slapping and pulling each other by their hair are a common sight. With a running time of 97 minutes, director and screenwriter Nicholas not only keeps a brisk pace, but also maintains a more than perfect sordid tone throughout the movie. Also, it's pretty tough to disregard Shari Shattuck's hard-hitting dialogue here.
After everything you've done to me, you don't think I have the guts to kill you?
Fans of this genre might not be completely blown away, but you are bound to have a good time.
You're part of this.
Night Terrors, 1983. A young woman takes a trip to the city of Cairo to visit her father and becomes inadvertently tangled with a terrifying, bizarre, sadomasochistic cult led by the magnetic Paul Chevalier, who claims to be a descendant of the Marquis de Sade. Tobe Hooper's Night Terrors did receive a lot of negative reviews, but that certainly doesn't mean that the movie is without merit. The acting is pretty solid, with a lot of symbolism thrown in here and there, and the story deals with a dark subject matter, one that is bound to keep you intrigued. Mind you, this is not a mainstream horror film, or even a slasher flick for that matter. Night Terrors happens to be an old-school horror movie with an in-depth knowledge of evil and corruption. So the pacing is kept intentionally slow, and it's not till you reach the ending that you are finally able to put the pieces together. Believe us when we tell you that you have simply no reason not to watch this flick here. BREAKIN, 1984. Kelly Bennett, also addressed as Special K, is a struggling young jazz dancer who comes across two street dancers, Ozone and Turbo. Absolutely enthralled by their dancing, the trio soon become friends and forms their very own dancing troupe. Joel Silberg's 1984 breakdancing-themed musical flick shows how the three of them literally become the sensation of the street crowds. It goes without saying that BREAKIN happens to be the most financially successful movie of Cannon Films as a distributor. Many might not be aware, but the concept behind the film came from Golan's daughter, who wanted to see a group of breakdancers performing before a crowd at the beach. The dancing on display is exceptional, and probably the main reason you will be hooked if you decide to give it a shot. Watch it for Lucinda Dickey, who looks breathtakingly beautiful here, and if you tend to be a Jean-Claude Van Damme fan, you cannot afford to miss his cameo.
I'm so sorry. I forgot your tip. You idiot!
Hot Chili, 1985. A group of 4 adolescents takes a trip to Mexico in search of work and soon gets employed at a resort there. There, they indulge themselves in crazy adventures with one of the boys refrains from all the sexual activities in the hopes of finding true love. The fact that this 1985 flick by William Sachs doesn't take itself seriously is what makes this typical teenage sex comedy way more compelling and equally watchable. Meet Hot Chili, a total blast from the past, boasting some of the craziest characters on screen, but the one that actually happens to truly steal the spotlight in the movie is undeniably the resort itself. Finding an actual Hacienda Tropicana cabana can be quite a task. After all, having exquisite suites and swimming pools are such a passé. With a running time of 86 minutes, Hot Chili is an instant classic and therefore highly recommended. American Cyborg, Steel Warrior, 1993. The devastating effects of World War III have left most civilians barren and caused AI to take over the world. Amidst all this, the only woman to have been able to give birth to a child has to make her way through a perilous city to a seaport where there is a ship on its way to Europe. Soon she gets pursued by a robot assassin who will not stop. And there seems to be only one person, a cyborg mercenary, who has vowed to protect her. Boaz Davidson's 1993 science fiction action flick is mostly remembered for its action sequences. We are stressing on the kicks, shootouts, and the running scenes, of course. You are bound to fancy the set design. Who would have ever thought that this low-budget film would go out of its way to create that perfect post-apocalyptic atmosphere? Special mention to the makeshift cities and the hideouts on display. They are visually outstanding and manage to look so alive. You might feel the storyline of the movie is a bit similar to Terminator, but believe us when we tell you that this movie delves into a territory that none of the first 2 Terminator movies even thought of considering. John Ryan, as the killer android assassin, happens to be way more intimidating than Arnold Schwarzenegger's T-800. American Cyborg, Steel Warrior is also the last film that was released by the Cannon Group. Trust us, this movie will drive you to the edge of your seats given its fast pace, whilst also keeping you thoroughly entertained.
Where are you from? From out of town.
Alien from LA, 1988. Wanda Saknussemm happens to be a geeky social oddball, the type who wears large glasses and has a strange squeaky voice. No wonder she is literally devastated when she gets dumped by her boyfriend for apparently lacking a sense of adventure. Goodbye. On receiving a letter that states her archaeologist father fell into a bottomless pit and died, Wanda, not wanting to believe that, decides to go looking for him. Soon, she finds herself in a strange subterranean world, one where she is not only mistaken to be a secret agent, but is also wanted dead. You might be surprised to know this, that ever since Alien from LA was featured on Joel Hodgson's Mystery Science Theater 3000, this sci-fi flick has been considered a cult classic. If you're wondering why, it might be because the 1988 movie roped in supermodel Kathy Ireland to portray Wanda. To understand the plot of Aliens from LA, add a teaspoon of Alice in Wonderland, a bit of The Wizard of Oz, and mix them well with Blade Runner and Space Hunter. But mind you, do not make the blunder of expecting this movie to be as good as any of the ingredients that we have mentioned. That being said, the movie is so outre that who knows, you might actually end up loving it. Everyone's aware of the low budget, but the sets on display happen to be quite the highlight. You also cannot deny the Roger Corman cult atmosphere encircling the whole movie. Just don't take the story seriously, and you are good to go.
And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.
You fool! You cannot stop me! I am a ninja!